Madam Court Reporter, if you want to swear in the witness.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the following testimony will be the truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. And do we need to redo the consent to swearing in remotely, or does it the previous one carry over for us?
I don't have a consent. The state of Georgia doesn't require it. You're welcome to make any statement you like on the record.
I don't think that'll be necessary. Thank you. So this will be the deposition of Lonnie Streeter. The deposition is being taken via Zoom pursuant to notice and agreement of the parties. The deposition will be taken pursuant to the Civil Practice Act for all purposes allowed under the act, including use at trial. We've got the witness sworn in. Can you please state your full name for the record, Mr. Streeter?
Lonnie Albert Streeter.
Okay. And have you ever sat for a deposition before, Mr. Streeter?
No, I have not.
Okay. So I'm going to go over just a couple sort of ground rules. I'm sure that you had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Nelson this morning, but basically we're here today. This is a truth-seeking function in civil litigation. I'm going to ask you questions, and then my questions and your answers will be transcribed under oath, and then that will be the evidence in this case, among other things. So it helps the court reporter if we can try to avoid speaking over each other. The best example is a lot of times I'll ask a question and you'll know where I'm going and sort of maybe want to answer before I finish. And so just for the courtesy of the court reporter and for the cleanliness of the record, if you can do your best to just wait until the question's done. From time to time, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Nelson may object to questions. If they object, you are still free to answer the question and in fact required to answer it unless they instruct you not to answer. So if there's an objection and I'm just sitting here staring at you, it's because I'm waiting for a response. So who is your current employer?
Veterans Empowerment Organization.
Okay. And who is your employer on January 5th, 2021?
Tyler Bowser.
And that was still with Veterans Empowerment Organization?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then another thing, so throughout today, I'm going to refer to Veterans Empowerment Organization of Georgia Incorporated as VEO, just so I can avoid stumbling over that mouthful every time. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay, great. So how long have you been with VEO?
I've been here 9 years, but I was doing contract work before I got hired in July 21.
Okay. And what is your current job title with VEO?
Campus coordinator.
And did you have the same job title on January 5th, 2021?
Yes.
And what are the duties of a campus coordinator?
Well, to make sure the campus is clean, make sure that the dorms are all stable, and basically just making sure the campus is in order.
Okay. I understand that there have been some sort of changes in the way that VEO does things. But as of January 5th, 2021, did part of your job description involve operating box trucks?
No, sir.
Okay. As of January 5th, 2021, did any part of your job description involve picking up donations for the dormitories?
Yes.
And so was there a person who was assigned to be the driver on those pickups?
Yeah, that would be Edward Davis.
Were there any other drivers whose responsibility it was to pick up the donations?
No, sir.
Before working for VAO, had you ever driven a truck before?
Yes.
Tractor trailer truck or a box truck?
No, just a regular box truck.
Okay.
26 footer.
And in what context were you driving box trucks?
Well, just moving furniture, moving people from apartment to a house, or, picking up furniture from people and moving it to one place to another.
Okay. Was operating box trucks ever a part of any official job description that you've had over the years?
No.
Okay. Have you ever had a CDL, a commercial driver's license?
Yes.
Do you currently have a CDL?
No.
Why? I guess, has your CDL ever been suspended or revoked?
No, I just don't drive.
Okay. So you just let the CDL lapse?
Yeah.
Okay. And now, have you ever had your driver's license suspended or revoked for any reason?
No.
Okay. Have you ever served in the military?
Yes.
What branch of the military did you serve?
United States Air Force.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Are all of VEO's employees former military?
No.
And then, so this question is just based on, I always explain why I ask it, because some people get offended when I ask about where their family lives. But basically, if this case goes to a trial, it will be in Gwinnett County State Court. And so we ask these questions just to make sure that we don't end up with family members of witnesses on the jury pool or in the jury pool. And so with that, do you have any family members above the age of 18 that reside in Gwinnett County?
Yes.
Can you just do a first and last name of any adult family member who lives in Gwinnett County?
I have two cousins there. One is Johnny Jones, and the other one is Lionel Cotton.
What's the last name?
Cotton.
Cotton. Okay. And so no other family members above the age of 18?
No, sir.
Okay. So I asked a lot of these questions with Mr. Davis, but I want to get everybody's sort of angle on it. So I want to talk about the wreck that brings us here today. Where did your trip begin on the day of the wreck?
373 Westlake Avenue, Northwest Atlanta, Georgia.
Is that VEO's headquarters?
Yes, sir.
And who all was in the box truck that day?
Yeah, Ed was the driver, and Ronald Logan and I were passengers.
Now, was Ronald Logan an employee of VEO?
No, he was a client here.
Okay. And so he was just helping y'all out?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. We have a program set up where you give us 22 hours a month of community service. And that's his way of giving back to VEO.
Okay, I understand. And so where did you leave once you left VEO that morning? Where did you go?
I don't remember the address, but we were in, I want to say, Lawrenceville.
And was that a home that
Yes. Yes, sir.
Pick up donations? Okay. Did you stop anywhere between leaving VEO and arriving at the home in Lawrenceville?
No.
Do you remember when you got to the home in Lawrenceville?
No, I don't.
Okay. And then what did you do? What did the three of you do once you arrived at the home in Lawrenceville?
Well, we knocked on the door, let the person know we're here to pick up the donations, and we started loading the donations in the truck.
Okay. And then after you left the home in Lawrenceville, you were headed back to bring the donations to VEO's headquarters.
Yes,
And in the subject wreck, the wreck that brings us here today occurred on that trip between the home in Lawrenceville and VEO.
yes.
Okay. So I understand that the wreck happened at the intersection of Brooks Road and Brooks Point Court. Does that ring a bell for you?
I'm not sure. It's been, it's been a while, but I'm thinking that's where it was at.
Okay. Well, I guess, can you describe to me or explain to me in your own words sort of what happened from the time that you pulled up to the stop sign to leave the subdivision, and then when the accident happened?
Yeah, we stopped at the stop sign, and the stop sign is a little back from the street. So we look both ways. I look both ways just because that's what I do. He pulled up a little bit before he got to the street, looked both ways again, and then he pulled out. And the next thing I know, we were being hit.
Okay. Were you talking with anyone inside the car just before the wreck happened?
We were just, general conversation. And then, like I said, seen the car coming, and it didn't look like she was going to slow down. And looked like she came from nowhere.
So you saw the car before the collision happened?
Yes.
At what point did you first see the car?
I'm not sure. I just know when I looked back up after he made the turn to turn onto the street, the car showed up from nowhere.
Did you say anything to anyone else in the car once you saw the car?
I said, it looks like she's not going to stop.
How did Mr. Davis respond to you when you said that?
I don't remember him saying anything.
Did you have any conversation with Mr. Logan before, I guess, after noticing the Miss Altman's vehicle and then the time of the collision?
Well, he said the same thing. He said, I don't think she's going to stop. She don't look like she's going to stop.
Okay. Did y'all have the radio on in the truck at the time of the wreck?
No, we didn't. It was, he had just put the directions to go back to VEO in his phone.
So Ed was or Mr. Davis was using his phone as a GPS device.
Yes.
How is he holding the?
He wasn't holding it. He had it mounted. He's got a bracket that he puts the phone on, and he puts it on the dashboard.
Okay. And was he touching the GPS at the time of the wreck?
No, he had already put the directions in.
Okay. And was he or anyone else on the phone at the time of the wreck?
No.
Was anyone in the box truck smoking a cigarette at the time of the wreck?
No.
At the time that you realized that there was going to be a collision, or I guess let me strike that. At what point did you realize there was going to be a collision?
Big and ambiguous. You can answer, sir.
When I noticed the car come out of nowhere and she didn't stop.
Okay. Now I'm gonna share my screen with you. I'm gonna look at a photograph with you. Can you see plaintiff's exhibit 13 on your screen? So Google Maps Street View.
Yes,
Okay. And so can you see, and I'm gonna try to zoom in for you so you can see it a little better. Do you see the stop sign?
yeah,
Okay. And then do you see the road sign that says Brooks Point?
mhm,
Okay.
yes,
And then I'm gonna zoom back out, and you see how there is like a right turn lane that turns into the neighborhood.
yes,
And then do you see this white line? It's a solid white line with a break in it, but a solid white line that separates that turn lane from the actual roadway.
yes.
Okay. So I want to zoom in on the stop sign here and ask you just some questions about the stop sign. I guess on January 5th, 2021, did you stop, or did Mr. Davis stop at this stop sign?
Yes.
And how long was Mr. Davis stopped at the stop sign?
He stopped a couple of minutes. Like I said, he was putting the directions into the GPS.
So was Mr. Davis stopped at this stop sign at the time that he was, putting the GPS coordinate or the address in the GPS?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did before driving past the stop sign, did Mr. Davis look both ways?
Once he pulled off, he pulled up so we could see, either side of the street if any traffic was coming. And then we pulled out into the street.
Okay. So this is a lot easier when we're in the same room, but can you see sort of my mouse on the screen? Or maybe if I do it with a highlighter tool, do you see that like circular tool, circular icon?
No.
Well, so here's the stop. Let me highlight the stop sign. So like, do you see that line where the stop sign is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to move to the, where's the next point that Mr. Davis stopped after this orange line?
Right there at that line, it looks like it might be a shadow.
Mm-hmm. Right here? So
yes,
right
sir.
Here?
Yes, sir.
So Mr. Davis stopped right there. So he stopped at the first orange line.
Yes, sir.
And then Mr. Davis pulled forward and stopped at the next orange line.
Yes, sir.
And then when he was stopped at the orange line furthest to the left, did he look both ways?
Yes, sir.
And how many times did he look to the left?
I don't know. I just know that he looked both ways and I looked both ways. I couldn't tell you how many times he looked.
Okay. Well, when you looked also both ways, did you see any vehicles coming when you looked to the right?
No, sir.
And did you see any vehicles coming when you looked to the left?
No, sir.
Okay. Now I'm gonna draw a third line. Do you see this third orange line?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Davis stop at that line?
I don't think so.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that if Mr. Davis had stopped at that third orange line to the right, it would have given the opportunity to look for approaching traffic one more time before he entered the roadway?
Objection, argumentative, lacks foundation, call for speculation. You can answer.
I'm not sure.
Well, if y'all had stopped at that orange line, it would have presented the physical opportunity for each of you to look left and right one more time, correct?
Objective form. Same objections as before.
I'm not sure.
Okay. So let me for the record, I want to change the color on this.
Well, hold on, before we change colors and stuff, somehow this has got to be in the record. So you got to stop and you can create a new exhibit, but I'm worried about us changing exhibits because now we have 3 orange lines on an exhibit he's testified to. That needs to be preserved in evidence.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we move to changing it to something else.
We'll I'm just gonna leave it. We'll leave it as is for ease of navigating the exhibits. Okay. So let me pull this picture back up one more time. So the middle orange line. Let me ask it a different way. From the time that Mr. Davis stopped and then continued driving from the middle orange line through the wreck, did he apply his brakes at any time?
No, he gave you gas. He hit the accelerator.
Okay. Save that. Is there anything that Mr. Davis should have done differently to avoid the wreck?
Objective form, it seeks an expert opinion and lacks foundation. I'm going to instruct him not to answer that question.
Are you going to take the advice of your lawyer and refuse to answer that question?
Yes.
Can you see Plaintiff's Exhibit 1 on your screen?
Yes.
Have you ever seen, I know this document has some highlighting on it, but have you ever seen this document?
No, I have not.
Have you ever heard from someone other than VEO's lawyers that Mr. Davis received a citation in the wreck that brings us here today?
I heard it from Mr. Davis.
Okay. Have you heard it from anyone else other than your lawyers?
Yes.
Who did you hear that from?
It was Tyler Bowser.
And what did Mr. Bowser tell you about the citation?
He just told me that Ed had gotten a ticket and that Ed was trying to pay it.
Okay. What is your working relationship with Mr. Davis?
Worked with Ed for like 6 years.
Were you Mr. Davis's supervisor?
At the time of the accident?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Were you in charge of disciplining Mr. Davis to the extent he was disciplined at all?
No, I was not.
Whose responsibility would that have been?
That would fall up under Tyler Bowser in our HR department.
Do you know if Mr. Davis was disciplined at all for this wreck?
I don't know.
Okay. So do you see the yellow highlighted text that says failure to yield turning left?
Yes, sir.
And is that what do you understand that Mr. Davis was cited for failing to yield while turning left?
Objective form lacks foundation.
What do you understand the offense for which Mr. Davis was cited to be?
For failing to yield, turning left.
Okay. And do you see the green highlighted text that says issue date and then has January 5th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
And you recall that to be the date of the wreck?
Yes, sir.
And do you see the red highlighted text that shows a conviction and bond forfeiture?
Objection, argumentative, Flax Foundation.
Yes.
Did any excluding any conversation that you had with your lawyers, did anyone ever tell you that Mr. Davis was convicted for failing to yield while turning left?
No.
Would you have been the VEO employee responsible for ordering a post-collision drug test?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Sure. So
Objection, lack of foundation, sorry.
who within VEO would be the person to decide whether someone would receive a drug test or an alcohol test after a motor vehicle collision?
It's argumentative, speculation, lacks foundation.
That would be our HR department.
Who is in the HR department?
At the time, her name was it was Stephanie Cutbirth.
Is there anyone else in the HR department?
At that time, no.
Okay. And so to the extent that VEO does post-collision testing, Ms. Cuthbert would have been the one who would have decided that?
Speculation, lacks foundation.
Objection, lack of foundation.
You can answer.
Yes.
Are you aware as to whether Mr. Davis received a post-collision drug test?
I don't know.
Do you know whether Mr. Davis received a post-collision alcohol test?
I don't know.
Are you aware of any VEO rule or policy relating to post-collision drug tests?
No.
Let's see. Were you present while Mr. Davis was speaking with the responding police officers?
No.
Did you, at any point, did you hear Mr. Davis say to anyone that Miss Altman was not speeding?
No.
So I want to ask about any communications that you had with Mr. Logan immediately before the collision. If you could just, to the extent that you were speaking with him before the collision, within say the 30 seconds before the collision, can you just identify any conversation that you had?
We just noticed that the car came out of nowhere and both of us said at the same time, I don't think she's going to stop.
Mm-hmm. Was Mr. Davis paying attention at the time of the collision?
Object, is argumentative, lacks foundation. Close for speculation.
You can answer if you know.
I do believe he was paying attention, yes.
And why do you believe that Mr. Davis was paying attention?
Just because he was. You know, he takes all the precautions to make sure that he, you know, doing the right thing.
Okay. Was anyone inside the box truck injured after the collision?
Speculation lacks foundation.
Mr. Logan complained of leg pain. Other than that, no, nobody else.
What did Mr. Logan tell you about leg pain?
He said he had bumped his knee on the dashboard when we got hit.
Do you know if Mr. Logan went to see a doctor after?
No, sir.
You don't have any idea one way or the other?
No, he didn't. He
Oh,
didn't
he
go.
did not. Okay. Do you know whether Mr. Logan made a workers' compensation claim?
No, he did not.
Did you speak with any witnesses that were on the scene of the collision?
No, sir.
Are you aware of whether there were any witnesses?
No, I'm not. I know that people had come out of the house after the accident, but that was it.
When you saw Miss Altman before the wreck actually happened, did you do anything to try to warn Mr. Davis about it?
Yeah, like I said, I told him, I don't think she's going to stop.
What did Mr. Davis do in response to that warning?
He tried to get out of the intersection by giving it gas.
Did VEO, to your knowledge, provide any driver training to Mr. Davis?
Not that I know of.
Are you aware of whether VEO provides driver training to any of its drivers?
No.
No, you're not aware, or no, they do not provide training?
I don't know.
Did you speak with anyone from VEO immediately after the wreck?
About an hour later,
Who did you speak with?
Mr. Tyler Bowser.
And how did you speak to him? Was it by phone or email or in person?
Well, I'll take that back. As soon as the accident happened and we got out of the truck, I called Tyler and let him know that we were in an accident.
And what did you say to Mr. Bowser on that phone call?
I told him we had an accident coming out of picking up donations, and I don't think the truck is drivable.
Did was the truck removed from the scene by a tow?
Yes, sir.
And was there disabling damage to the truck?
Yes, sir.
How did y'all get back to VEO from the scene of the collision?
Tyler Bowser came and picked us up.
Did y'all talk about how the wreck happened with Tyler?
Yeah, just general conversation.
Did anyone say anything about who caused the collision?
Well, Tyler said that it's probably Ed's fault, and myself and Mr. Logan, we told him no, it wasn't.
And what was the, like, how did that conversation go?
I can't hear you. What did you say?
Sure. So what was that? Like, what was the to the best you can remember, what was the substance of that? Like, how did that conversation happen?
Well, he wanted to know what had happened.
Did y'all discuss the citation that was given to Mr. Davis?
I don't remember.
Why did you, so when Mr. Bowser said it's probably Ed's fault, why did you tell him that you didn't think it was?
Because I didn't believe it was Ed's fault.
Whose fault do you think it was?
I think it was her
Well,
fault.
Objection. That's the ultimate question for the jury. It seeks a legal conclusion, and I'm going to instruct the witness not to answer that question. I'll let you answer questions about what conversations you had, but your opinions about who was at fault are not appropriate for this deposition. And me and Mr. Kahn have already discussed that, so we'll discuss that with the judge. But I'm instructing him not to answer. To the extent there is an answer on the record, I'm going to strike.
What did Mr. Logan say when he? Sorry, that was just a terrible question. Why did Mr. Logan, or what was Mr. Logan's explanation as to why he believed that Mr. Davis was not at fault?
Because Mr. Davis, he honestly believed Mr. Davis didn't do anything wrong.
Did Mr. Bowser explain why he believed that it was probably Mr. Davis's fault?
He said because he had failure to yield the right of way.
Did the police officer speak to all three of you, you being you, Mr. Ronald, and Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Did this police officer speak to anyone else that was on the scene as far as you know?
As far as I know, no.
Did VEO do anything to investigate this wreck?
I don't know.
Did you and Mr. Davis have a conversation about him no longer driving VEO vehicles after this wreck?
I heard, excuse me, I heard that Tyler told him he couldn't drive anymore.
Did you ever have a conversation with Mr. Davis about that?
No.
How did you hear that Tyler or Mr. Bowser told Mr. Davis that he couldn't drive anymore?
I heard it from Tyler.
What did he tell you?
He told me Ed is no longer the driver for VEO.
Did he say why?
Because of the accident.
Who became the driver after Mr. Davis?
No one. We terminated all positions of driver.
And was the reason that driving positions were terminated because of this wreck?
No.
Lax foundation, speculation. You can answer, sir.
No.
Do you know why VEO terminated driving positions?
Because we got rid of all our vehicles.
Do you know why VEO got rid of all of its vehicles?
We're going in another direction here and we don't have any use for drivers.
Do you know if the decision to go in another direction was related in any way to this wreck?
No, I don't know.
I think I might be done. Let's break, unless you guys, either of you have some questions, let's break for 5 minutes. Mr. Nelson, will you have any questions?
I don't have any follow-up.
Okay. Well, Mr. Johnson, what about you?
I don't, yeah, I think I'm off mute. I don't have any follow-up.
Okay. Well, then let's break for 5 minutes. Just let me run through my notes, and I think I'm probably done, but just want to make sure.
Mr. Streeter, this is Mike Johnson. I represent Arch Insurance Company. You mentioned dormitories that are operated by VEO. Can you explain what you mean by dormitories and what they do?
Well, VEO started off as a veterans homeless shelter. So we have apartment buildings that we turned into, living facilities for homeless veterans that we get off the street.
Okay. Do you own the buildings that you call
VEO does.
dormitories?
Yeah, VEO does.
Okay. Does it own the furniture in the buildings?
Yes, most of the furniture in the buildings were donated.
Okay, but were they donated to somebody else other than VEO?
No,
Objection, calls for speculation. Lack of foundation.
You can answer the question to the best of your knowledge, sir.
no.
When VEO puts furniture in dormitories, does it decide which dormitories to put in what furniture and what to take out as far as furniture?
We put it in there as needed.
Okay. So no one else is saying that you're putting in furniture because their decision as to where to put furniture, it's VEO's decision, or is it somebody else's decision?
Objection, vague, compound, leading.
Go ahead.
That's VEO's decision.
So when we're talking about this furniture that VEO owns, that it has received through donations that it puts in these dormitories, is that the type of furniture you were picking up on January 5th, 2021?
Objection, leading.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just to make sure that I'm not confused. So if furniture is picked up that has been donated to VEO, let's walk through a couple little steps, okay? Does VEO decide when to pick up furniture and where to haul it to, or does some other organization or person decide when to pick up furniture and where to haul it to?
Objection, vague, leading, compound.
VEO does.
And is any other business or individual paying VEO any kind of money of any kind to transport this type of furniture, or is it done at the decision and sole decision of VEO?
Objection, leading, lack of foundation, calls for speculation, vague.
It's done by VEO.
Have you ever, well, first of all, January 5th, 2021, did any other business or individual hire you, anyone in the truck or the truck itself, to hire for their benefit any property on that day?
Objection, compound, vague, leading.
No.
When VEO picks up furniture, do they use all furniture, or sometimes do they take some furniture because of its condition to a dump or other facility to throw away the furniture or to have someone else recycle it?
Objection, compound, vague, leading.
We take what we need, and if it's in bad shape, can't use it, we haul it to the dump.
Okay. Does any other business or individual make the decision what furniture to keep for VEO and what furniture that VEO is going to take to the dump?
No.
Objection, vague, leading, compound.
Okay.
Lack of foundation.
With regard to any times that you said that you worked in helping to pick up donated furniture, before I ask the question, how many years were you working with VEO before the January 5th, 2021?
I worked as a contractor for, I want to say 9 years.
Okay. And then on January 25th, 2001, you said that you were I'm going back to your start. What was your position at that time?
At what time?
On this date, January 5th, 2021.
Oh, I was a campus coordinator.
Okay. And as part of your job duties, you talked about not only keeping things organized and stable and safe in the campuses, but also helping pick up donated furniture, right?
Objection leading.
Is that a correct summary of your testimony?
Yes.
All right.
Same objection.
During that time, you were a campus coordinator performing those duties. Do you know of a single time that VEO was hired by any business or other individual to pick up furniture for that other person or business's purposes and transport it for that other person or business's purposes?
Objection leading, compound, very compound, vague.
Not to my knowledge.
For this furniture that was in that truck, after the truck was disabled from the accident, do you know what happened to this furniture?
Objection vague, compound leading.
Oh, no.
Confusing.
Okay. So you were not involved in helping to remove this furniture out of the truck and continue its transport on behalf of VEO to VEO's dormitory?
Objection leading, vague.
No.
Okay. Do you know who may have done that?
Same objection.
No.
Okay. Do you know whether this furniture was disposed of by VEO?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Streeter.
Yes, sir.
No further questions from the plaintiff.
Okay, let's conclude and get out of here. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Real quick, are they gonna read and sign?
Yeah, we'll reserve to read and sign for both transcripts. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Kahn is getting an expedited transcript for Mr. Davis. Would you like one expedited or do you want regular delivery, which is 10 days, business days?
Mine is fine, 10 days. This is Mike Johnson.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Nelson?
Oh, you were asking me, do I want to pay expedited fees?
Yeah, I'm just letting you know that's an option because Mr. Kahn's getting it. So all parties are made aware of that.
Sure, and if I want it at the same time that Mr. Kahn has ordered it, do I have to pay the expedited fee?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll take it in the normal course of business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.